Good morning, afternoon, wherever you happen to be watching from. I'm your host, Gary McLean, and you are watching Talent Talk. Thanks for tuning in today. Today is the day, the final day to submit your videos for the co-host contest. Submit your videos before midnight tonight if you'd like a chance to co-host the season finale, which will be airing December 12th. You can submit your videos to talenttalkyyc@gmail.com and visit the Facebook Talent Talk page at Talent Talk Media or the official website at talenttalkmedia.ca for more details. The winner will be announced during the November 28th episode. Another reminder for the folks that are watching, this is a interactive show, live show with guests and myself, so feel free to comment, say hello, whatever you're feeling, just throw it out in the comment section, and we'll have fun with it. Today's guest is a film and television actor as well as a dialect coach whose career spans more than 40 years with over 350 stage and media productions. He was the recipient of the 1993 Best Actor and 2007 Best Narrator Alberta Media Production Association Awards. He is also a 2000 Martha Cohen Award winner for sustained and significant contribution to Calgary theatre, and the 2010 Supporting Actor Betty Mitchell Award for Shakespeare's Dog at Alberta Theatre Projects. He is also a acting and dialect coach, most notably Fargo seasons 2 and 3, which I'm sure most of us have seen, and Tin Star. His film and TV roles, man, so many to mention. Tin Star, Fargo, Mutant World, Hell on Wheels, APTN's Blackstone, Wynonna Earp, and Fortunate Son, and the list just goes on and on. So please join me in welcoming Mr. David LeReaney. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. Thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm stoked to be on your program.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on here because I know you have lots of stories, so it'll be fun.
40 years.
Yes, exactly, right? And how did that all start? Like,
Well,
or,
I don't want to do that started in a 5,000 watt radio station back in whatever, but it started in high school. I wanted to, I was shy and I wanted to get out of my shell. And so I took some drama courses. And I got this great drama teacher named Ray Logie, and his strength and his gift as a teacher was to shoot you full of confidence and push you on stage, and you believed in yourself. And one day he cast me in a role in this play that he had written, and I was playing a maniacal. I had a huge monologue playing a maniacal vacuum cleaner salesman. And I made a big hit. Everybody said, "Wow, I didn't know you could do that," and ended up becoming one of the high school stars. And a few years later, when I was old enough to drink with him, we were sitting around in a bar, and I said to him, "So Ray, why did you cast me in that? I mean, you hardly knew me. Why did you?" And I was expecting to hear something like, "Oh, well, I saw something. I saw a spark, and I just sensed that you had innate talent." And he said, "Well, I knew Bill couldn't do it. I knew Bob couldn't do it. I knew Dan couldn't do it. So you were my best bet." I was That's not what I was hoping to hear, but it just was the introduction to my first introduction to the world of casting.
right? Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so where did it go from there? Like,
Well,
is that when you kind of knew, okay, that's it.
I,
This is what I'm doing.
no,
Or
then I went to. I decided, well, this was 1972 when I got out of high school, so there wasn't, theater was in its infancy, literally in its infancy in Canada. Then there was hardly any film and television to speak of. So I thought, I can't be an actor. I'd love to be an actor, but I can't do that. So I went to UBC, and I thought it was going to be a probation officer, a social worker, something useful and contributing to society. But I kept a hand in with acting. And then one day, do you remember the movie? We've all seen it, I think. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and there's that great scene where they're in sort of this bath shower area, and Jack Nicholson makes a bet that he can lift this huge marble device, and they all bet on it, and he tries and just about busts his vein trying to lift it, and they all looked at him very sadly because he failed. And he turned around and he said, looked, and they gave him this look, and he said, "Well, what are you looking at? I tried, God damn it, didn't I?" And it just is one of those things where a movie had an instant effect on me. I said, "I gotta try." I got to try to be an actor. I'm young. What the heck? I might fail, but at least I can say I tried. And so I auditioned for the University of Alberta, which has got a great drama program. Tore my cruciate ligament in my right knee, and I walked in on crutches, and they didn't. I wasn't picked that year, so I went to Europe for a year and traveled around, backpacked, and got some life experience, saw the world, and came back and tried again, and got in, and basically just weighed my progress there. You know, my attitude was, it's my laboratory. I'm paying for it. I'm going to try a bunch of stuff and see what works. And if the bad outweighs the good, then I'll get off and try something else. But here we are 40 years later, and I'm still, the bad hasn't outweighed the good yet.
Right. Well, that's good. And so when was your first 48? When did you first do film?
Into theater?
Into film, sorry. I'm just kind of curious when that transition began, and kind of how it transitioned.
It was a slow transition. I was making, to begin with, very much a theater actor, and I got little bits here and there. I'm just trying to think of what my first decent thing was. It's funny. I did a bunch of auditions, and I was living in Edmonton at the time, and I wasn't getting anything. I was failing. Finally, I got a call to audition for a lottery commercial to play an RCMP officer, with the red coat and the hat and the whole thing. And I thought, why? I'm short. I'm just not the right guy for this. Why are they calling me in for this? And I thought, oh well, I'll go anyway. And I had a real chip on my shoulder about it. And I thought, oh, I'll just do it, get out of there. It's just a waste of time. But I don't want to say no to the casting director. So I went in and I didn't care, and I didn't want it. And so I did the audition. The guy said to me, "Look, can you do it tougher?" I looked at him like, "Are you kidding?" I didn't say this, but what a crappy direction. I thought, tougher. Yeah, okay, sure. And I did it. And about a week later, I got a call from the casting director saying, "So you got the job?" And I said, "What job?" She said, "The lotto commercial, but the RCMP." And I said, "You are kidding me." I thought, well, that's interesting. That I went in with an attitude of whatever.
Right.
And I had no nerves. There was no sense of neediness. So that was one of my first lessons about auditioning for film and television. It was like, yeah, just relax, because there are so many reasons you're not going to get it. You might as well just go in and have some fun, and just do the best you can, and maybe they'll remember you for the next one.
Yes.
And that proved over and over again. I've done that. I mean, that happened when I did Jake and the Kid, same thing. I thought, I can think of 5 guys that I know personally who are better for this role. But I said, it's a series. So, if I do a good audition, maybe they'll consider me for a little part somewhere down the line. And I ended up getting, it was playing George Solway, the Undertaker, in Jake and the Kid. And it ended up becoming more and more of a deal. And I ended up becoming sort of the B storyline on a lot of the episodes, until there was a kind of a fracas between what was the A channel and the CRTC, and then there was a fight. And so anyway, they pulled the plug on shooting in Alberta, and I was the baby with the bathwater, and I lost that job. I can't tell you how many jobs I've lost for reasons that had nothing to do with me.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunate part.
Yeah, I Shrunk the Kids. I had a great little part of Bruce Patterson, the nasty, nosy neighbor, kind of like the Abner Kravitz character from Bewitched. He's always peeking through the drapes and getting involved in with the shenanigans of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids family. So anyway, it was going really well, and they were putting me in all kinds of things. The 2 writers one time even called me up at home. They said, "We're in the editing suite. We're looking at your stuff. We just love it. We're going to put you in everything, man." I thought, "This is great. I'm going to be a regular on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids." And then they got into a legal entanglement with Disney, and they kind of parted ways. And I lost my job because they couldn't use my character because it was the intellectual property of the 2 writers. So I was out again.
Wow. Yeah. Oh. Well, So have you always been in Calgary? Like I'm just kind of curious. Like.
No, I was born and raised in Chilliwack. That's why I went to UBC for the first 2 years, and then I thought, well, go to U of A. And I did the program there for 4 years. I stayed there for 3 years and ended up marrying a woman from Calgary. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be, at that point, I was on the road quite a bit, touring and getting work elsewhere. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be away a lot, why not she should be at home with family and friends. That's where we decided to raise a family.
Okay.
So I've been here since, I started working here in '81. And I got getting quite a lot of work down here. And then we moved here in '83, and I've stayed here. And I raised my kids here, so I tried to make it a priority to stay home. So I didn't kind of do the auditioning for Stratford and Shaw and that kind of things. One of my mild regrets. I didn't do that, but what the heck? I've had a career. So.
Right, and that's why I was kind of curious, just due to although Alberta's of course had some really great stuff here, it's not a huge market.
No.
So I was just wondering about the consistency of work and things like that.
No, I've tried to have a kind of a three-pronged. Three-pronged. I got three arrows in my quiver, I guess. So between theater work, voiceover, voice acting, and dialect, and also film and television. So I'm able to, when there's not a lot of film and television, I'm doing theater, or and now with the dialect coaching, that always covers those blank spots, which is why I decided to do it in the first place. It's just kind of what can I do when I'm involved in a gig. And I'm also working at the medical school. I'm a standardized patient trainer at the medical school. So I train actors to be patients for doctors to practice on. And that also fills up the gaps. So between all that, I've got this prestigious patchwork of jobs and gigs that keep the ship afloat.
And so how long have you been with that program? Because I don't know how many people are actually familiar with that program. It's a great program.
What, sorry?
I was just saying it's a great program for anybody who doesn't know about it.
Yeah, the medical skills program. Yeah. I've been, I think it's like 12 or 13 years. I started as a standardized patient, and they were looking for, somebody to be a trainer. They were taking on extra trainers. And so now I'm sort of part of the staff there. So it's about 12 or 13 years. And I've been probably a trainer for 10.
Okay. All right. There was a comment about how somebody really enjoys your dialect classes, and I do want to go back to that, actually, just how that all began. When did you realize that you had kind of a knack for that? And
well, being kind of a short and now balding actor, I do a lot of character work, and so and a lot of times that had to do with the taking on a different dialect. We had a dialect teacher and dialect course at the U of A, which was kind of unsatisfactory. Our dialect teacher was really good at doing dialects, but not very good at teaching you how to do them. And even while we were doing them, while we were in the classes, I was thinking, geez, I think I could teach this better than this guy, because I'm kind of methodical and analytical in the way I approach things. And so I break it down into separate elements, and I'm very methodical that way. And so I thought, I could probably teach this better. And then about 1999, I think it was, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna hang my shingle out as a dialect coach, and maybe I can pick up some extra cash in between gigs. And then I sent out, I kind of got my ducks in a row and wrote out what I do and how I teach, how I would teach, and how I would coach. And I sent letters out to all the producers and artistic directors in town saying, I'm now a dialect coach. And this wonderful woman named Helene White, she was a producer, and she was producing a Nickelodeon show called Caitlin's Way. So she called me up and she said, David, I understand you're a dialect coach now. And I said, yes. And she said, can you teach a young Canadian actress to sound like they're from Montana? And I said, you bet, sure I can. And that was my first on-set big gig, working with a major network. and it just kind of caught fire from there and snowballed, and it's now become my primary source of income, and it's actually made me fairly comfortable.
Okay. I do just want to point out that you do seem to be having a little bit of static. I'm not sure if anybody else is catching any of that. Maybe it's just on my end, but every
Okay.
once in a while your voice gets cut out by static and feedback. But I was trying to see if I could figure it out on my end, but I have a feeling it might be on your end. Unless it's my headset. Could be my headset. I don't know.
I hope everybody heard most of what I said anyway.
I mean, I was still able to. Okay, so somebody just noticed that they're not noticing it, so it must be my end. So there we go. Perfect. Glad to hear that. I'm glad folks. As long as you folks can hear them, that's all we need to know. Yeah, no, that's. I still find that kind of fascinating, that whole story though. Especially when you're like, sure, yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the lesson to be taken from that, and I hope I can share some things that I've learned over the years, like attitudes going into an audition and that kind of thing. And this also is another one. I've mentored a few people who were on the cusp of doing something, venturing into another area of artistic enterprise, and I say, yeah, go for it. And look what happened to me. I just decided to do it, and I figured I had a little bit of confidence in how I would do it, and it's worked out. It's worked out really, really well, and it's something I love to do, and that's what I think my best advice to anyone is, and I gave myself this advice a long time ago. I wish I'd have given it to myself sooner. Is find something you love to do, figure out a way to get paid for it, and you'll never have to work a day the rest of your life. I mean, for the most part, I've really, really enjoyed my 40-year career in various aspects of the business. Particularly dialect coaching has just been a blast, and it's afforded me not only good money but great opportunities of working with wonderful people. So.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing I think. I mean, I think most of us realize kind of how lucky we are to have somebody that can do some dialect coaching locally, because again, it's not a huge market, and to be able to have that access to that kind of skill set, I think is a huge advantage for local actors here.
It's important. I think it's a really important tool to have in your toolbox. Especially this American thing. Because a lot of us don't realize that we have a sound. There's a Canadian sound, and it's something that the American service production people don't want to hear. And so that was how it started for me. Really, I thought, well, what is this? What is this American Canadian thing? I don't understand. So I kind of used my ear and my skills at dissecting accents and dialects, and I started listening to American actors just speaking in a kind of a standard general way. Which we now call generican. It's what you hear the soap opera stars speaking. Most of them speak in a kind of a generic, and even though many of them are from various parts of the States or the world. So I started tackling that, taking it down, and writing notes and keeping notes, and I've never lost a job because they said I sounded too Canadian. I've never had to go in and ADR something because I came up with a Canadian sound or pronunciation.
Okay.
But so I said, okay, well, share that with people. I'll make some money, help you make some money, and get it, because it's too easy an excuse not to get hired for an American production is that you didn't get the accent quite right,
For sure, and I think you've mentioned this in some of your classes as well, that it's not a bad idea to kind of just practice in general life as well, if that's something you want to kind of perfect, right?
There are certain sounds and words that you want to start taking. I'm going to try to avoid that the sunlight creeping through my blind. Yeah, there are certain sounds that words like sorry. If you shouldn't say that in an audition anyway, unless it's in the script. But if you're going to say sorry, say sorry. You know, that's the American way, and the ow sound, the about, house, and about. And, that, and you want to start adopting the American way, because if you do it in here in Canada, nobody's going to notice that, and nobody's going to say, why are you trying to sound like an American? You won't sound. You'll just sound kind of general North American.
Right. And you've had some great opportunities to work on some prominent sets as well for dialect coaching, such as mentioned in the beginning, Fargo, Tin Star. Maybe you can, because that's kind of a different level, I suppose, in terms of, you know, teaching workshops.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell a little bit about that experience on set and teaching one-on-one.
Absolutely. Well, you know, it's interesting that I kind of fell into the Nickelodeon Caitlin's Way thing. They just said, yeah, come on, do it. But I had to do for Fargo. They said, can you meet with the couple of producers? And sure. So I made sure I had my ducks in a row again, and I went. And they were in a hotel downtown, and I said, okay, I'm here for the interview with the producer, and they said, oh yeah, they're just a little bit late. They'll be calling you in a minute. And they called me in, and there were 8 LA producers sitting around a table, and I had to face them down. And you know, Noah Hawley, the showrunners, asked me, so how do you work? What do you do? So I was ready for that answer, and so I kind of sold it, and they said, okay, we'd like you to be the dialect coach. And I said, well, I've got an availability problem. I'm going to play for the first couple of months of your shoot. And they said, oh, well, that's not going to work. So they brought in a Vancouver dialect coach, Tony Alcantar. And then for the second season, they decided to give me a try for whatever reason. I'm not sure. And so then I was able to walk into that and work with some wonderful, wonderful actors. So here's what I do. Generally, I get, when they hire somebody, I get them to send me their contact information. Then I get in touch with them and say, hey, you're going to be doing a Minnesota dialect. I'm here to help you. If you'd like to have some, you know, Skype with me, and we can work on that. Here are some dialect samples. I'll send them examples of real people speaking in the actual dialect, and I'll also have it all broken down into notes and the various elements of the dialect, and I send them the written material and the dialect samples, and they said, let's get together. And they say, okay, yeah, I'm free Monday. So then we start chatting online usually. Sometimes if I don't get them online, then I can meet them at the production office, and they'll find a room for us, and I'll get together with the actors and start breaking down the dialect and start working through their. So I break down the dialect by giving them all the various elements of the dialect first before we actually start looking at text. And then we eventually start working on going through their text, basically syllable by syllable, and saying, okay, here's a sound you need to watch out for, and here's a sound that you need to adopt. And then on the day, when it's their time to shoot, I will arrive early, and once they're out of hair and makeup, or maybe even before they get into hair and makeup, if they're going to have a late makeup call, I'll knock on their trailer door and say, hi, I'm here to help if you want. And usually they're quite good at it, and they'll invite me in, and we'll go over their text for that day. And when I walk into the studio, I go immediately to the sound guy and say, can I have a Comtech and a set of headphones, please, so I can listen in. And then I listen to the rehearsals, and I give the actors some notes in rehearsal. And then I start listening to the actual takes. And if I have to, I prefer not to, but if I have to, I'll pop in between takes and say, just watch this. This word is this. I give them some tips all the way through. And again, I try to be sensitive to what they're going through. If they've got a heavy emotional day, I'd like to keep my nose out of their work as much as possible. And that's why I like to get to them early and lay all this stuff in as thick and heavy as possible. And the closer we get to performance time, the less I like to interfere with their process. And I always say to them, every actor, look, your work as an actor and your connection to your scene partners and whoever you're working with, your connection to the work is more important than the sounds coming out of your mouth. So if you're having a tough day where there's lots of props and you're particularly heavily emotional scene or something, put your hand up. Just put your hand up, and I will walk away and leave you alone, because that's more important than the work of getting that sound exactly right.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And so you kind of did that on season 2 and 3 of Fargo, right? And got the chance to work with a couple decent folks on that show.
Yeah.
Well, so season 1, were you just as an actor on season 1 then, or?
Season 1, yeah, I was the mail clerk in season 1, episode 2. Yeah, yeah, I didn't do any coaching in the first season.
Okay, well, we'll start with season 1, just because I do have a photo here that I'd like to share from season 1.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that isn't from Fargo.
No, but he was in season 1 though, and
that's right, he was, and I got to do this lovely little scene with him. It's a scene that I'm very proud of. I wish I was able to nab a clip for you to show. But yeah, it's interesting. The first time I met him was on a movie that I was dialect coaching up in Edmonton called Cut Bank, with Liam Hemsworth and Teresa Palmer and Bruce Dern, and I was coaching that show. And this was just shortly after his awful interview with Jean Gomeshi. And so he was coming, Billy Bob was coming in late. We'd been shooting about 10 days already. And so I was kind of steeling myself for having to deal with him on set. But they actually told me, the producers told me, that don't try to coach Billy Bob, just let him do whatever he does. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll hands off, Billy. So anyway, he did arrive on set. He seemed quite pleasant. And so I thought, well, I better go and introduce myself and just let him know I'm the dialect coach, and I will be whispering in people's ears in between takes. And he said, oh, you're the dialect coach. And I said, yeah. And he said, listen, I'm trying to do a little something different and not use my usual accent. So could you listen and make sure that, and if if you hear anything, you let me know, all right? And I went, oh, okay. So they did the first take, and after the first take, he kind of looked over at me and he went, so I went over and I said, well, there is this one little sound that if you just be careful about this. And he said, great. So they did the second take, and he looked over at me and went, well, I guess we'll get it in post. And but he was lovely, and I had lovely conversations with him. He was really affable, family man. We talked about all kinds of things, and he was a sweet guy. And on his rap day, he hung around for about an hour and a half after his rap time, because everybody wanted a picture with him, which is what I got with him in front of his trailer. And he stayed around until everybody got a picture, and then he left. He didn't have to do that. He could have buzzed off right away. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Lovely guy. Everybody liked him so much they wanted a picture with him.
Yeah,
So that interview with John Gomeshi, and the word on him was that he was a little weird and kind of freaky and maybe hostile. He wasn't at all, not at all. And then when I worked with him on Fargo, I had a scene with him, just me and him, and we spent a whole morning working together. And he remembered me from Cut Bank, and we had a lovely chat about various things. And what was going on with Cut Bank, because it hadn't even been released at that point. So we had a lovely chat. He was a pleasant guy.
I always like to hear those stories, for sure, especially when you have an actor of his stature at that point.
Most of the stars, most of the big name actors I've had the honor and privilege to work with, I found they're special because they're special. They're stars because they're special. They really are quite extraordinary in a lot of ways, and quite workmanlike in their approach to their work as actors. People very rarely do they always know their lines. They rarely have to retake because they blew it. If they retake it because they're looking for something else, or the director's looking for something else. So yeah, most of the time I'm quite delighted and elated to work with the big stars, because most of them have been really lovely people.
Yeah, and like I said, I just like to hear those stories, for sure. Got another gentleman here I'd like to share, with folks, and this guy here.
My man, I love. As I was telling you earlier, I have a man crush on him. He's really one of the finest human beings I've ever met. Forget about him being a TV star. he's just a delightful, generous, warm human being, and I just, and he still calls me up and says, "Hey, David, I'm doing the good life. I got a couple of things I got to do in Australia, and I have to do a Southern accent. Can you help me out?" And I'll tell you, one time I did, and it was just 2 lines, and I said, so I broke it down, wrote it out phonetically, I recorded it for him, sent it to him. He says, "That was great." He said, "It was wonderful. Thank you so much." He said, "What do you drink?" And he said, "And don't tell me nothing, or I'll send you a bottle of peppermint schnapps with extra." And I went, okay, I like a nice scotch. So 2 days later, I got a call from Willow Park saying, "We have a package for you. Are you home to deliver it?" And I said, "Yeah." So they dropped off a package, and it was in it was a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue, which is a $300 bottle of scotch.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I said, "I'm no charge, Ted. Just forget it. It was no big deal for me." So he said, "Oh well, no, we got to do something." And on his rap day, as a matter of fact, he came up to me, put his arm around me, and says, "Thank you. It was, your help was greatly appreciated." And so he handed me an envelope, and I opened it up later, and it was a card in it. Said, "I couldn't have done it without you," and a $200 gift certificate to Model Milk Restaurant. Just that kind of guy.
Wow. Yeah, no.
Funny story, but Kristen Milioti was she played Patrick Wilson's wife in season 2, and she was quite young. She was 30 years old, and the movie took place in 1979, so she was a little lost in some of the terms and references, and so what was it? I said to Kristen, what does this mean to you? "Good night, John boy." And she just looked at me blankly, and she had no idea what that was. So Ted said, "Well, so when were you born? How old are you? When were you born, Kristen?" And she said 19, I don't know what it was, 80 something. And he started thinking about it, and Patrick Wilson said to him, "Ted, that was during your second comeback." Ted roared. He actually fell on the floor. Like, he was sitting on the couch, and he actually rolled over and fell on the floor laughing. That's how he took that. And him and Patrick, they used to tease each other a lot, and he was really great at being teased.
Yeah.
Lovely. My favorite. He's number one. My big.
Sorry, I missed that last part there.
He's my favorite big star. Ted Danson. Just a wonderful guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, we got one other gentleman I want to share with folks. This one I like. I like this photo. That's quite the look for Mr. Nick, for sure.
And he was playing a very, very eccentric character in a drunken lawyer in season 2 of Fargo. Really, really lovely man. So smart, really funny, and very kind as well. And took my coaching extremely well. He was very, very happy to try to comply and get it right. And very, very, here's the kind of guy he is. He and his wife, Megan Mullally, they have a pact. They will not be apart from each other for more than 2 weeks. Get rid of that. I'm trying to dodge that sunlight. There we go. They will not be apart from each other for more than 2 weeks. So it's in their contract. So when he takes on a gig, he said, "Okay, but my wife's going to be shooting something in South Africa, so I need 2 weeks to get down to South Africa and be with my wife." She does the same thing. So they make sure that they are not apart for any longer than 2 weeks. And they put it on the production company, make sure that the production company accommodates them.
Just realized I had my mic on mute for a second there. Okay, no, that's very cool. And so you were part of the dialect coach for season 2 and 3. Unfortunately, Fargo never kind of came back after season 3,
Right.
which was kind of sad. I'm not sure where season 4 is right now. Do you?
Yeah, they're finished. It's in the can. In fact, they're releasing it. It's started a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. They shot in Chicago.
In Chicago. Oh, okay. All right.
Kansas. The idea it was set in Kansas, but they were shooting in Chicago.
Okay.
It looks really good of the trailers that I've seen. It looks great. And Jessie playing the female lead in one of the female characters. She's a British actress, and from what I heard, she nailed the dialect. really got it. It just sounds perfect.
And I don't know if you're willing to or not, but are you willing to kind of give a little bit of a sample of what that dialect would sound like for folks?
God, Minnesota dialect's got strong O's, eh? And they don't say A, that's more Canadian, but the O's and E's and O's are a little more forward, and they say things like, "Oh yeah, you betcha," and there's kind of a lilt to it. It comes from it's inherited from the Scandinavian immigrants who moved to Minnesota and went, "Oh, good, ice and snow. That's just like home. We'll stay here." So there's a lot of things like little phrases like "oofta." Oofta means a lot of things. It can mean "oh geez," or it can mean "crap" or "wow." Oofta. That's one of the kind of particular sounds that you're not even going to find anywhere else but Minnesota, and it comes from the Scandinavian. So yeah, these O's and E's, and they say things like, well, the O's are kind of similar to Canadian. I didn't have to coach many Canadians on the ow sound because it's very similar to house, out and about. They do that kind of thing too, and it's got a kind of it also has a kind of a rhythm here. If you can hear that kind of thing, it has a little bit of a bounce to it. And I can't think of any other phrases. Ours becomes ours. Theirs become theirs. There's a car over there. So there's a car over there. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. Anyway, that's a wee taste.
Yes, it was a good sample for sure, no doubt about it. Yeah, no, that's very cool. Oh man, time's flying. So we're about 36 minutes in, and I do want to just remind folks, which, by the way, we have had some pretty good participation here so far. But just a reminder for the folks that are watching that, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask myself or David, feel free to do so, or any other comments that you'd like to make. You want to wave to David, just type wave, whatever. It's all good. And that's my mid-episode reminder about that. There was a movie quite a few years ago that was filmed here that I believe you were probably a part of as an actor. It was called Rat Race, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of curious, like you did send me a photo, and I'm wondering if it was from that or not. And here's the photo.
Yeah, that's me and John Cleese. Now that was a dream come true. I mean, he's a cultural icon. He's one of my cultural heroes. And so we were shooting. I was playing one of the high rollers, one of these millionaire bettors that they bet anything, like bet on two flies crawling up a wall or whatever. And so he was kind of the head of that group. And we were flying to Silver Springs, New Mexico on a Learjet. So they had a Learjet built in the studio with a camera on a gimbal that went right down the center of the passenger aisle and on this interior of a Learjet. And there were 12 of us in there, and so we were moved in, and they said, David, you're sitting here, and there was an empty seat beside me. And so I was thinking, wonder who's going to be sitting beside me. So, and then John comes in last, and they said, John, you'll be sitting beside David. They went, jackpot. So I got to spend the day with John Cleese sitting beside me in that seat. He was delightful. He was full of stories, and if you asked him any question, he would be happy to answer. And it must have been funny for the people in the studio who weren't inside the body of that jet, because what they would hear is because we'd ask John a question and he'd come up with something and just make us all split up laughing. So I got to spend 5 days with him, and I can say I think I actually saved him from being immolated in flames. We were shipped down to Santa Clarita in California, the Disney Ranch, and it was on November night. In fact, it was the night that George Bush and Al Gore, that election night. So we were getting constant input from everybody saying Gore's ahead, no, Bush is ahead. So anyway, it was quite cold. It was November in California, and it was quite cold. So they had a lot of heaters on, those propane heaters. And I was sitting down in a chair next to one of the propane heaters, and John moved in and kind of backed up close to the propane heater keep his backside warm. And he's about 6'5", a really tall guy, and I was sitting down, so my face was at his bum level, and I happened to look over, and I could see his polyester suit that they put him in was starting to crinkle from the heat of the propane heater. So I went, John! I shoved him away, and his suit was half melted at the back. Because if he stood there much longer, he might have burst into flames. So I always say I saved John Cleese's life.
And how did he react is my question.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, my God, he was wonderful. And he was another one that was very kind and open, and he on the wrap day he just came up to everybody and gave each and every person a hug and said, "You'll have to come down for the premiere when we open. I'd love to see you again." And he was just a wonderful guy, really delightful. I was not disappointed at all.
Right.
Did
Did you ever get a chance to work with him again, or kind of touch base with him?
That's the only time I ever met him, but it jumps out as one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah, it definitely would have for me as well, because definitely a John Cleese fan. So yeah, that's fantastic. I just for the folks watching, David did try to share his demo reel with me, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't get it to upload properly here, or else I'd be sharing it with you, because there were some great scenes in there. The
demo reel is I haven't updated it in about 15 years, but I just don't. I find that I don't think I've ever gotten a job from a demo reel. I think they're useful if you're looking for an agent. If you're going down to Vancouver or Toronto or LA, you should have a demo reel so that you can show an agent when you're shopping for an agent. But I don't know that I've ever gotten a job from anybody looking at my demo reel. They want to see you, and they want to see you in action. I might be wrong about that, but anyway, for that reason, I haven't invested any more time and money into updating my reel. So if you go onto my website, everybody, if you go onto my website, davidlereaney.com, there is a link to it. You can watch it on there if you want to see an old demo reel.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, sure, it hasn't been updated, but even when I was watching it the other night, I was kind of awestruck. Like, even with clips, like, you were just able to draw me in. Like, I was just fixated on your characters that you had on there. And
pick those. You try to pick those scenes where the focus is on you. Well.
For sure, right? But yeah, no, I just found myself. I couldn't stop watching. Yeah, is all I was trying to get at.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes in that is with Sam Shepard. I had a couple of scenes with Sam Shepard in a show called After the Harvest, and it was interesting. There he is. He was a lovely man. I was playing a character named called Thorvald Thorvaldsson, and in the book he was an immigrant from Iceland. And the director at the time said, "We don't do the accent. I don't want." He was afraid of people doing kind of the Swedish chef accents or something. So I sat down with just before we started shooting. I sat down with the writer Suzanne Couture. I said, "You know that the director doesn't want us doing accents." And she said, "Yeah, I know." So I said, "What do you think if I slipped a little bit of a flavor of a dialect in that?" And she went, "Yeah, do it." And so anyway, I did sneak a little bit of Scandinavian sound into that scene. But it was great working with him. I got a funny story from that one too. That he comes up on a horse, and I'm down by the lake, little pond fishing, and I'm not supposed to be fishing in that lake. And he comes in, he says, "Thorvald, what you got in the bag?" So I covered the fish up, and he's on this horse, and he brings the horse down. It's a great big huge horse that he's sitting on. And we have the scene. He mounts the horse to go back up the hill, and as he gets back up the hill, with every step the horse took, it farted. So he went up, and I had to keep a straight face. The camera was on me, but once they called cut, everybody fell about laughing, including Sam. It was so we had lots of breaks between the setups to sit on the grass and chew a hayseed and have a chat. And I asked him questions about, did he write when he wrote, did he write with dialect in mind? Did he write that, was he careful to write dialect? He said, no, basically he just heard the characters' voices in his head and wrote it that way. At the end of the day, his van pulled up, and he jumps in the van, and okay, well, I'll jump in the van too. We'll get driven down to the circus. So we go down to the circus, and all the other actors, and some of them who'd been on set for a few days, saw me get out of the van with Sam Shepard, and they went. I walked up one of them, a friend of mine. I said, "What are you looking at?" She said, "You're not supposed to ride with Sam. That's Sam's van." I went, "Oh, I didn't know." Sam didn't care. So it was one of those things, right? Everybody's quite protective of him, and a lot of times those things come from agents and producers rather than the characters than the TV personality themselves.
Right, and that kind of brings up a little bit of a point, right? There's a lot, especially for folks that aren't in the industry. Like there's a lot of little set etiquette rules that are kind of unspoken in a way.
Yep.
That a lot of it's just learn as you go type thing. It's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. It's all right. Won't happen again.
No, they always tell us, not supposed to say extras anymore. Background performers don't talk. Don't talk to the stars unless they talk to you. Which is unfortunate, but it does kind of protect them from sightseers and people who are want to get close to the stars and be seen with them and have their picture taken with them and all that kind of thing. And just it's a distraction for the performers sometimes too.
Oh, for sure, right? I mean, especially if they're focused on their character and they're even in between takes, they're not breaking character. They're always in that character, right? So for anybody really to go up to them, and it just disrupts all that, right? So it makes sense to me. But again, I think folks that wouldn't be in the industry just wouldn't even think about it. But
yeah, I'm usually really careful about that. And I know I've given you a bunch of pictures of me with stars and things, and it's not something I do all the time. If I'm sure that they're going to be comfortable with it, and I've known them for some time, and we have established a relationship, then I will say, "Can I get a picture with you?" But if they're on set for one day or something, and I don't really have anything to do with them, then I'm not going to try to cozy up to a star and say, "Can I have a picture with you?" I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, right, exactly. Just kind of going back to a little bit to the dialect coach. Well, actually, I guess another question I kind of have is, so you've kind of worked in the Alberta market, the BC market. Have you been down to LA? Have you worked that market a lot?
No, I never really wanted to. I did dip my toe into the Vancouver scene for a little while. I got an agent in Vancouver from at that point was Characters, and I went down and I stayed with some friends, and I think I spent about 2 weeks there trying to get my toe in the door and trying to get comfortable auditioning there. And then I got called to come back to Calgary to do a gig, and then I got another gig, and then I got another gig, and I just never went back. And so eventually one day my agent shipped my tapes back to me and said, "Yeah, it looks like this ain't gonna work, so bye-bye." And I thought, yeah, that's fair. And but you really need to spend some time there. You can't just kind of go for 2 weeks and hope to break into the business. You need to be there for a couple of months or more in order to kind of get to know the casting directors, get to know the scene, and get comfortable in it. And I didn't have that time or that desire to do that. And same thing with LA. People, I've often asked, why don't you go to LA? And I'm like, why? I don't really like LA, and I don't want to get involved in that rat race. I'm doing fine here. After 40 years, I can look back and say, I had a career, even if it all came to a crashing halt, which thanks to COVID, it kind of has. I don't need to go to LA, and I don't want to put myself through that.
Yeah.
Not my scene.
Fair enough. One thing I really didn't touch on this enough, so I wouldn't mind discussing it a bit more, is your theater side. That's really where the bulk of your work is kind of developed, has it not? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. There was a time in Calgary when I was doing 6 or 7 shows a year. Not so much anymore for whatever reason, just age and familiarity, I guess. So yeah, I'm lucky now if I get 2 shows a year. but it really was. There was a time when I was actually doing 3 shows at once. So I was the busiest man in showbiz in Calgary for a while, but not so much anymore. I'm kind of okay with that. There are some shows that I'd like to do that pass me by, but dodge that. There we go. So yeah, again, I started when I started. It was all theater. Very rarely did I get any film and television, and it just started to multiply. And you get a bit of a reputation, and the casting directors will send you up for more things. And I learned about auditioning as well. I learned, how to lay down a decent audition. Really, the secret is don't go to get the job. Go to do a good audition. Go to leave your calling card, and maybe if you don't get this one, they might remember you for the next one. And also just go to practice. That's sometimes I'll get called for an audition. I'm going, there's no way I'm going to get this. I mean, I'm just a wrong guy. I wouldn't cast me in this. Why? But I'll do it anyway. I'll do as good a job as I can possibly do, just for practice, and also in case they might go, hey, he's really wrong for that role, but this role. That's kind of what happened with the show in Fargo, the scene I had in Fargo. I auditioned for a small part, and they really liked me, and they said, yeah, but we don't want to waste them. Let's hold off and see if there's something better. And then there was. It was just one scene, but it was a great scene, and I really enjoyed doing it, and it was a great opportunity. And that's one of those ones where that philosophy worked out. I'm not right for this role, but maybe I'll get another one. Especially when they're doing series, because they might not have anything for you until episode 10, and they go, whoa, LeReaney, yeah, there's that. Now we can use LeReaney as a part. Let's call LeReaney and see if he can nail this down.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a good point. The one thing I'm kind of curious about, when it comes to auditioning for theater versus film, do you find there's much of a difference?
Yeah, huge. For one thing, for film and television, you kind of really got to get it off the page as much as possible. I memorize. I make a point of memorizing my auditions now, and I don't like having unless it's like they need it now. You get your sides now, and it's 7 pages of dialogue, and they want it in tomorrow. Then I'll use the page as best I can, but take it off the page as much as possible. Whereas theater, and it's almost always in person. Even maybe not so much in the time of COVID. I haven't had a theater audition since the pandemic, but you can definitely use the script. And usually the scenes that you're auditioning with are much longer, and there's a lot more, and you can't be expected to memorize that. So that's more of a kind of a stage reading, it just requires a different kind of energy. You can't do a film kind of energy where everything's interior and the performance is just in the eyes. It has to be fuller and more energized, and you need to use your voice more. You need to demonstrate that you can fill a room. Because if you're just mumbling and talking like this now, then it's not work on stage. So they do that in film and television all the time. It's one of my pet peeves now is mumble off voice acting, mumble whisper off voice acting.
Yes.
And it feels like a fad, and I think people ask me, why do they do that? And I think it's a mistaken supposition that if you talk really quietly and off your voice and whisper half whisper, it's really intimate and real. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
One of my pet peeves when I'm watching shows, I go, okay, closed captions again, because I can't understand a word.
Yes, I've done that on a few occasions.
I got the headphones in and I'm going, I'd love to be able to give you notes on the dialect, but I can't even hear you in my headphones. It's one of those things. I don't like. You look at somebody like, and God forbid I should utter his name, but Kevin Spacey, who's also a theater actor, but he can speak natural, conversational, informal, colloquial English and understand every syllable, and doesn't sound like he's over articulating. but you hear everything. You don't have to. You never miss a syllable with an actor like that.
Yeah.
But then there are some. Just like, no, just speak up.
Right. Exactly.
Somebody wrote those words to be heard. When you mumble, I don't know what you're saying.
Exactly. Well, as Liz, one of our viewers, just posted here, you get that, you get the quiet voice, but then when they kick the music on, the music is like blaring.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I see we've only got a few minutes. Are there any questions from the folks?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, if there is any questions that you'd like to ask Dave, please do. Yeah, we're down to the last 5 minutes here, so
I looked up and I thought, what? 11:55.
Yeah, I know. Goes fast, right? But yeah, like just to kind of elaborate on Liz's comment, that's one of my pet peeves is when you're watching a show and you're basically controlling the remote as you're watching, right? You're raising it to listen to the voice, and then you're lowering it because music and explosions.
Yeah, my remote's often always in my hand, as is my phone with IMDb. I'm always IMDb. Who is that actor? Where have I seen them before?
Yep, yeah, absolutely done that too a lot. Yeah, but oh well, that's all right. So maybe one other thing we can kind of chat on here is like we've kind of discussed the audition side of between theater and film, but you kind of noted on it a little bit when you said that of course theater is a bit more physical. It's in your face as well, but it's also a bit more physical than what film is, and that absolutely translates when you land the job as well, right? As we're looking at each other right now, our window is very small, right? And I just want to maybe touch on that a little bit and just the differences between film and television when you're actually.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. I just worked with the Calgary Opera is going online. They're going to do their performances online, so they're using their emerging artists. And I spent a week with them adjusting their performances for the camera. So we talked a lot about that. I mean, the closer you get in to and this is an extreme close-up, then the eyes, everything is in the eyes. The further you get back, then that can expand a little bit. But if you watch just tonight, after we get off here, just watch a show, and we'll have some really good actors. For instance, The Queen's Gambit, Anya Taylor-Joy. Her eyes are amazing. They're huge and they're wide set, but they never move. She's like the most. Everything is in her eyes. Her face is placid and calm, but all the emotion, everything is there. It's in her voice. It's in her eyes. So yeah, I mean that's an important aspect of auditioning for film and television, and being in film and television is stillness, and think about keeping the performance in the eyes. I watch these. I have the hyperactive eyebrows. I've had to kind of train them to stay still, because I'm always doing this kind of thing, and they're big. My eyebrows are big, and so I have to really make sure that I'll shoot myself up with both. Not really, but head in my eyebrows, because they're usually all over the place. Not so critical on stage, right? Because people are 50 feet away, and they're not going to be noticing your eyebrows flashing up and down.
Yeah.
Everything is like, but on stage, you'll look with your head and maybe take a step. But in film and television, it's just a flick with the eyes.
Yeah.
Because just the fact that they're cutting to you is a reaction shot. To get a reaction on stage, you have to move. It has to be seen from 50 feet away. Anyway, that's a lesson.
Absolutely. And another actress I kind of wanted to mention that for me has the same effect, just being able to tell the story with her eyes, and what she does is Yvonne Strahovski from Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you've watched that series.
I never watched.
No. Fair enough. Yeah, no. Sorry, I just missed that last little part there.
So I just never watched it, so I don't know who that actress is.
Oh yeah, well if you ever do get a chance to watch it, great series. It honestly is. I thoroughly enjoy it.
I just couldn't. I just went Especially when they popped that girl's eye out. I went, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair. Well, I think we're pretty much done. The last thing I want to say is my kind of first experience with you. I think how we kind of introduced ourselves in a way is I actually had a audition for, and this is when I first kind of started acting, for a Heritage Park play. And I think I came to you because I was playing both a Scotsman and a German. And so I came to get some dialect coaching for the Scotsman side of it. And well, I got the part, so thank you. So,
my invoice will be in the mail.
yes, yes,
10% for my 10%.
exactly. Yeah, right. Absolutely. The agent fee, almost. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, David, for being on the show today. It's a pleasure having you here. Thanks for the folks watching and commenting. So appreciate your comments. So keep that coming. I want to quickly just announce that next week's episode will be with Jerome de Gorville. For folks that don't know him, he's done some acting, he's done some crew work as sound editors and things like that. But more recently, he's definitely into the music side of things, and he's releasing some really good music and videos. So keep an eye out for that next week. And thanks again, David, and hang around for a couple seconds after I log off here, and we'll do a quick chat afterwards. And take care, all. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining.